So this is kind of an overview of what we'll go through tonight. We're going to give you some updates. We're going to celebrate our 2024 cohort, and then we're going to introduce you to our new 2025 cohort. But before we dive in, we always love to take this time to talk about the origins of the Mira Fellowship and give you a little bit of an understanding of where the Mira Fellowship came from. So the Mira Fellowship was founded in honor of my husband, John, and my first daughter. And to tell you a little bit more about her, I'm going to pass it to John. But before I pass it to John, one of our traditions here at the Mira Fellowship is to share some of the superpowers of the people we are so fortunate to work with. And John has an amazing, unique ability to step back and see things from a broader perspective. And he has been part of the fellowship from the beginning, and he's played an amazing role in keeping us focused on the vision that we originally started with and keeping us grounded in why we're all here. So thank you, John, and I will pass it to you.
Thank you, Co. And thank you all again for joining us. One thing I really love about this event is that it does give me a chance every year to talk about our daughter, Mira. As Co said, Mira was Co and I's first daughter. She was born November 3rd, 2017. She lived just a short time on her birthday. After we lost Mira, we were feeling the way I'm sure a lot of you have, and at some point in the last few years. We felt like it was a bad dream we were not going to wake up from. We didn't know where to start and how to deal with it. So we decided to take a step back and really think about how we wanted to hold our memory of Mira in the next 5 to 10 years. We didn't want our child's life to feel like a tragedy. We wanted to feel like she had a profound impact on the world. So that is where the idea of the Mira Fellowship was born. To not only see her impact on the world, but for us to get to keep her in our lives as an active part of our lives every day. And so every year at this event, I like to commemorate where Mira would be if she were alive today. Mira would be 7 this year. She would be just starting first grade. As we've come to know from our second daughter starting school this year, first grade is where reading and writing really start to take hold, and children start to really engage and craft the world around them. And it's been fun for me to see the Mira projects mature and start to take hold and start to have a significant impact on the world around them. To me, it's like watching Mira walk through the world. And to tell you a little bit more about how the Mira Fellowship works, I'm going to send it back to Co, whose superpower is her ability to create community by holding space for connection and making everyone who steps into her life feel a sense of belonging.
Thank you, John. So we founded the Mira Fellowship with the vision of creating a more compassionate future. We wanted to create the space for mid-career professionals who had a big vision and a dream to make it into a reality. So we create a safe space where people can be vulnerable and creative, where they have the support of a strong community so that they can embark on the messy and exciting and challenging business of making their dream a reality. So the Mira Fellowship is a 6-month intensive fellowship with ongoing support, where each fellow receives coaching and a community of support and access to some micro grants to make their projects a reality. We are so excited by what we've seen the fellows be able to do and what the community's begun to become. One of our biggest findings with losing Mira was the fact that, we had the worst possible thing happen to us, and we had the most amazing community around us. And because we had that community, we were able to do hard things. So our sort of hypothesis is that when you have a community around you, you can do hard things, and that is what the Mira Fellowship is meant to be. So I'm going to pass it now to Kai to tell you a little bit more about kind of the vision for the Mira Fellowship. And Kai's superpower, I feel so fortunate to get to work with him, is he's got many superpowers, but the one I will highlight today is that he has the ability to see things, what's possible, long before other people. And I cannot tell you the number of times that I have heard either a fellow or found myself saying like, oh, this is what you've been trying to tell me for the past 5 months. So I'm extremely grateful that I get to work with Kai, and I will pass it to him.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Co. So I'll talk just a little bit about what the Mira Fellowship, sort of how the Mira Fellowship sees the world. And basically, there's 2 simple things to understand. The first thing is that nearly everything around us was designed by somebody. The way you drink coffee in the morning was designed. The way our freeways connect was designed. Even our expectations for how we're going to raise children is designed. Even our current political moment, as crazy as it is, was designed. So at some basic level, we're all just human beings, and we need to drink water, we need to eat food, and we need to procreate to survive. The rest of it is basically made up. It was designed by someone at some point in the past, and that means it can all be redesigned. Any of it, all of it can be redesigned. The second thing is that our current generation of humans is living in a pretty unique moment right now. Never before have we been so connected. Never before have we had so much power over our surroundings. We used to believe the world was flat and that lightning was the wrath of the gods. Hand spinning the yarn needed to weave a single bedsheet used to take 6 months. So this is the kind of place we were, and this is now where we're going. Now we are so connected with we're so connected with everyone around the entire world. We can connect with almost anyone in an instant. All the technology and communication at our fingertips has changed the way we humans address the world. So what do we do with it? What do we do with this new world that we live in? That's kind of the question that the Mira Fellowship wants to examine. We want to help build blueprints. Sorry. We want to help build blueprints for our social future. What is the future of work? What is the future of child rearing? What is the future of community? All of this can be designed. So as you listen to these amazing fellows today, I want you to think about the world around you. Think about our future. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing is inevitable. The more we believe in and support the futures we want to see, the more likely they will become a reality. Each of these fellows is beginning an incredible journey. So let's dream with them and help launch their ideas into the world. So that gives you a little background. And I also want to introduce Sarah. Sarah, who joined us this summer and helps keep all of the wheels moving and is our Chief Operations Officer. And her superpower is, well, at least what I've found so far, it's been a short amount of time, but what I found so far, her superpower is incredible compassion for our fellows. I've been so impressed by how she's able to address and like meet every fellow where they are and figure out what it is that they need and how best they can move forward. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you for joining our team.
Thank you so much, Kai. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And I'm just going to let you know a little bit about what you can expect for this event. We're going to start with some updates from our Forever Fellows. Forever Fellows are those who have graduated from the fellowship over the past 5 years, and they continue to pursue their work. We'll share a bit about the fellow experience to give you a peek behind the curtain of what it's like. And then we'll hear some updates from our graduating fellows. And finally, we will introduce you to our new cohort members and give you an opportunity to talk with each of them in breakout rooms.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. So we are going to start out. We have a couple of video updates that are going to give you some insight into the fellows and their experience. So we'll start out by giving you an update on our broader Forever Fellow community. And if you're having any trouble seeing this, make sure that you are in the right tab on your Zoom.
I came to the Mira Fellowship to do work on design for belonging, and specifically, I was prototyping my way towards writing a book. So since finishing the fellowship, the book came out, and it's now sold a lot of copies, like 38,000 copies of the book are out there. I've heard from people all over the country that are using the Design for Belonging book and toolkit to change how they're working on small scales, like within a classroom. I've also heard from people outside of education in healthcare. Just this week, I got a note from somebody who works with folks that are coming back home after being in prison. So the next year for me is really about thinking in the context of the organization where I'm working now, and exploring what belonging means there. So that looks like working with teams to uncover what are the moments of belonging that they most need to attend to build greater belonging.
We take the waste that's produced by one type of industry and we match it with the raw material needs of another industry. At this point, we've brokered hundreds of thousands of pounds of waste that would have otherwise gone into a landfill. We've also worked with several hundred companies to identify what their raw material needs are and also what type of waste that they have to essentially build up a repository of these types of waste that we could potentially circularize in the future. If I look back on where I was last year and everything that was accomplished since then, I mean, I've actually met with Congress in Washington, D.C., met with state senators in Sacramento, basically promoting the circular economies and trying to promote regulations and policies that would actually benefit sustainability.
The mission of Geotara is to empower humanity with data, communication, and analytical tools. So my technology has a better ability to detect climate impacts and reduce the errors in climate signal by up to 400%. Traditionally, for a project like this, the type of insights that we can offer would take 80% of the time of a trained engineer with 5 to 10 years of experience. We're trying to reduce that to a few seconds. I have just 1 or 2 goals right now. Within the next quarter, we are looking to raise about $300,000 to meet our operational costs for the next 18 months in preparation for venture capital.
I'm Lynn. My project is the Money Health Collective. It is a way for us to create an environment where people around the world have an opportunity to talk about money in a safe way. This woman from Estonia joined and said, I don't understand how this is something that I can just use. How is this possible? Like, I just get a financial advisor. They're not going to try to randomly sell me something and I can have this support. I mean, that's not an uncommon story, but I think the fact that she found this through a blog post from somebody else who found it from somebody else, that this seems to be something that is meaningful for people in a different way.
I'm always working as a liberatory designer, and I am always working with those in power at the table and those who are most impacted at the table. I am stoked on being able to work on so many different kinds of projects across the landscape. I recently finished a project in Southeast Alaska, working with the Tlingit Haida folks on designing a lateral kindness initiative, education CMO in LA, designing an organizational path, multi-year path to anti-racism within their organization and what it means to be pro-Black throughout their education system and to honor all of the many identities in that context. I think I'm at a cool place in my learning and my career where I'm the intersection of my leadership work and my design work means that I'm really strong at strategy and change management. So I feel excited about using those things to make impactful change with aligned organizations.
So the San Francisco Contemplarium creates space for honoring our human journey here in San Francisco. So what we do is events, programming, and other sorts of offerings that allow people to take a moment to give their experiences of joy or sorrow or anything in between the space that it deserves. Man, so much happened in the past year. I think the biggest thing was quitting my job, my full-time job, to pursue the Contemplarium full-time. So that was big. And then since then, I've done all sorts of experimentation, and then officially launched the first official programming in August. and we've had 2.5 months of programming since then. And it's really taken off. There's its own momentum. It's real. People are coming and coming back. And now I'm building a team of volunteers to help co-create this thing into the future. I think the primary goal for this next year is to really move beyond me as a solo person doing this to empowering a community and a core of co-creators.
Tiny Mike Story is a community to help develop genuine confidence, creativity, and emotional intelligence in kids. The way we do it is through daily storytelling and public speaking. Over the last year, we got all the kids who went through our program to come and share their learnings, and through that, teach a course. That course, I think, is probably the best storytelling course that exists for kids, because one, it's taught by kids who went through the program. It's taught by kids as a reflection of the journey they've had. It's taught by kids with examples of how they spoke and how they figured it out.
At the start, this is my nervousness, this is my confidence. Your confidence is this much, your nervousness is up high. Then you start talking more, you make jokes, you make people laugh. It'll turn to even. But still, it's still there. It's going to trouble you while you're talking, and the confidence can get scared and go down. But then you make people laugh with jokes, make it funny, make it hilarious, make it ridiculous. Make yourself look weird, make it funny. And then your confidence will go up.
So that is the one thing that I'm the most proud of. I think that course is the most incredible, useful thing a child can watch to help them become better storyteller. What we are focusing on right now is to get to the first 1,000 paying users of our program, because that validates the fact that people will pay for the program and that the solution keeps working for them. The intention is in 5 years, every city in the world, every major city, every small town has some version of Tiny Mike's Story, either run by curators, either parents and kids sit at home, play the Tiny Mike Story game to reflect on their days, to share stories with each other, and through that develop genuine confidence in the kids. That's the dream. Whether it takes 5 years or 10 years, I think it's for time to tell, but I know eventually we'll get there.
So now you've heard a little bit about where our past fellows have been over the last few years. We're going to take another moment just to hear a little bit more about what the experience of being a Mira Fellow is. And so we'll look at a video that is about the Mira Fellowship experience.
It's where I feel the most present in myself and in the vision of what it is that I want to create in the world.
I just feel so moved by the fact that it's growing, that it's very international right now, that there's this range of projects, and I see the potential for how belonging kind of is a thread of all of them. That's very exciting to me.
Inspiration, people, ideas, motivation.
It's really good to be in part of a community where everyone's trying to do something good.
What I found in Mira is that there's just this tremendous trust that if you're willing to ask for something or propose something, the answer is like, default answer is typically yes.
There's no doubt in my mind that I probably wouldn't be pursuing this as hard if it weren't for the Mira Fellowship.
As the fellowship grows and we reconvene every year, just knowing that the group is growing.
Before the Mira Fellowship, I had an idea that this project would be big eventually. I think after Mira Fellowship, I realized that the dream could be bigger.
Mira's my people. This is not like this warm fuzzy thing. This is like hard work in the world, but all with people who are willing to make those sacrifices to do good. And that's just it's just a beautiful group of people to be with.
Awesome. All right, so we're just going to take one little moment here, because we're in this unique space where we have this matching grant. So if you happen to some of you have already been amazing and given us donations. And some of you may know somebody who would love to give a donation. But anything between now and Monday morning will be tripled, and anything before the December 31st will be doubled. So just want to put it out there because, you know, this work is not possible without the support of all of this community and everything that you all have put into it. So if you happen to know anyone, let us know. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to take a moment to hear from our 2024 fellows. So these are the fellows who have just finished up a year of really hard, amazing work. I'm super impressed with what each of these fellows have put into it. And we just want to take a moment to honor what they've done. So we have some quick updates from them coming next.
The vision for HeatWatch is to actually work towards drastically reducing and eliminating heat stroke deaths in India. The kind of people who are most impacted by this are people who are working outdoors. So think construction workers, think sanitation workers, street vendors, agricultural laborers. So these are the people who are most impacted by heat, and these are the people who really need access to awareness and support at the moment. So the vision is to drastically reduce or eliminate heat stroke deaths in India, and then moving forward, maybe other parts of the world as well.
The project is called Bite Size Help Desk. A lot of these organizations that operate in Asia are really small, like 4 to 5 people organizations, and they're under a lot of pressure, including from governments, surveillance. For example, there's a newsroom editor who needs help with just a line of code in her website. So even though it's such a small thing and it will take maybe a few hours for a developer, but then for her to find someone to be able to help her do it, to that process of sourcing someone takes a lot of time. So by offering these small bite-sized help, but at scale, we're hoping to support a lot of organizations do bigger things. Ideally, if we find the funding, we would like to support around 50 small civil society organizations, which includes NGOs and also media organizations within a year.
I couldn't find a place where you could enter into a process or have an experience that would prepare you to think hard about questions of, you know, autonomy at life's end, what happens to your body, do you have a funeral, sort of tactical questions everybody's got to grapple with. And often you're thinking about it in a vacuum. You don't know your family members' preferences necessarily. And then if you widen the aperture, how do you think about what matters most to you here while we're on Earth? So what's your sort of bucket list for life, or what are your values you want to pass down generationally? And finally, how do you think about the finances in your planning? Do you have a will? Do you have an estate plan? How do you think about that together in a way that doesn't just put grandma and grandpa in the middle and talk about them, but everybody talks about it together? So with that in mind, built a pilot set of experiences that would prepare a family to think about that and have conversations together. When you hear stories from a 72-year-old father share why certain values matter to him and what the stories were that reinforced those over time, how he learned those and is seeking to pass this through to his grandchildren, I think it really puts a fine tip on things. I think in 2025, what we plan to do is create, I think, a few different ways to test what it would look like for families to work together in a shared space around this. Some of it might involve virtual testing, virtual spaces. I think we're sort of interested in like how much of the DNA of summer camp, which has changed my whole life the last 10 years, could be brought to family experiences and kind of increase vulnerability and honesty and transparency with one another by just having fun together.
I'm Dart Lindsley, and I imagine a world in which every company is an engine for delivering work that makes employees feel whole and alive. And so what I'm doing now is I've formed a company called 11fold, and that company teaches other companies how to roll out a different kind of management. It's called multi-sided management, and it frames employees as customers and work as a product. And when work is a product, we can design it better. At the beginning of the Mira Fellowship, one of the things I set out as like an ideal thing that could possibly happen is that I'd have an article in the Harvard Business Review. That article dropped this morning. Now, The challenge is not, will anybody listen? The challenge is, how on earth are we going to support the people who are going to come to us asking for help on it? I think we are going to land a few great companies, and we are going to help those companies to build out multi-sided management.
Justice definitely came out of a personal experience of being an expert witness in court and having, sort of watching judges not understand what we were trying to explain to them, or watching them get frustrated by their lack of information and inability to find that information. That's what made me think, like, maybe there's a better way to do this. It's an institute that is meant to provide a space where judges can go to a group of scientists who have expertise in different areas related to climate litigation, related to climate science, and they can work directly with a scientist who can help them understand different aspects of a case that they may be making a decision on. So what's been really exciting, probably the most exciting thing for me about Justice, is that every single person who I speak to about this says, that's an amazing idea. It's going to be hard to implement it, but let's work as a team to do it. And so I feel like I've been pulling in all of these people from around the world. So conversations and contacts, from Fiji, Philippines, India, UK, everyone is excited about it. It will have different forms in each of the different countries, but if they're sort of in-country champions who are carrying it forward and making use of it, and we see that decisions have more scientific validity and more, then you can really, read the decisions of the judges and recognize, oh, they definitely are relying on scientific information they're receiving. That's a win for everybody. So essentially, like, if the jurisprudence is improved, then everybody wins.
All right. I'd love to just do a quick virtual round of applause for this 2024 cohort. It's been so fun to watch them do their work. And we're so excited to see what comes in the coming years from all this amazing work. So our last group that we get to hear from today is our new fellows. And this is always my, one of the parts I love so much, because we have such a very cool group of folks who are joining us this year, getting ready to launch into their experience of refining their idea and making it something big and impactful. So I'm going to pass it to Yusuf to get us started introducing Anne, who's going to be the first incoming fellow to share about her work. So Yusuf, I'll pass it to you.
Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing? So good to see so many good faces from around the world. I met Anne not too long ago, and learning her story, it was so apparent what her superpower was. It just jumped off the paper, going through her social media, learning about her project. She's super strong, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Her superpower comes from within. Her superpower is her spirit of strength.
Wow, thank you, Yusuf. That's so kind. I'm so excited to be here today, guys. And also to go first. So I wanted to, on behalf of all of us, thank Ko and Kai and Sarah and the whole Mira team for inviting us to be here and to be a part of your beautiful community. It's such an honor, and I can't wait to tell you about my project. So I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys all see that? Yay. Okay, awesome. So my project is called Embracing Mortality, the Garden of Epicurus Project. So as human beings, we have this amazing gift of self-awareness. It's a superpower in itself, but it comes with a cost. It comes with the cost of knowing that someday, everything you love, everyone you love, yourself included, is going to vanish. Oops. Wait, can you guys still see that? Okay, great. Yes. Yep, I'm talking about death here, guys. I'm talking about mortality. And who wants to think about mortality? Something as, depressing and scary as mortality. But I want to challenge that. I want to say that maybe thinking about mortality can make you feel sexier and more hungry and alive. Does that sound a little bit crazy, right? Well, wrong. I actually think that thinking about mortality in the right way, in the right context, can actually make you feel more alive. I'm going to tell you how to do that. But first, I'm going to tell you a little about me. So about 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with advanced stage breast cancer. And I spent about a year in the hospital and went through all the things you go through. I lost a lot in the process. But what came afterwards was a lot harder because I kept waking up with these panics about dying young, dying at all. I kept picturing my loved ones dying. I had very little resources to go to. Instead, people were telling me to, be happy or be more optimistic, but I didn't want to be optimistic or happy at the time. And still, I just really wanted to be authentic, but it was really hard to find a way to talk about death in an authentic way. Like, where do we go to talk about death in an authentic way today? It's hard. We might go to a therapist or friends. More often than not, we might go to distraction. But with distraction comes other problems. And I think that the distraction and the avoidance of talking about our mortality is actually at the root of a lot of our isolation, depression, and anxiety. I think that we actually long to be authentically mortal. So I want to bring an ancient idea back into modern society. So if I had a death panic or I was really scared about mortality and I was living in ancient Athens, I'd have a couple of resources available to me. I would probably wake up and go into the Agora, and I'd walk past Plato's Academy, and I'd walk past Aristotle's Lyceum, and I'd pass the Stoics and the Cynics and maybe some like itinerant philosophers looking for random students. And finally, at the end, I'd reach this garden of Epicurus, which is an actual garden. And there I might find some help. So Epicurus thought that philosophy's role was it was a medicine for the soul. It was to make the soul, make the human being feel more tranquil in the face of grief and death. And you would go there and you would talk to him and he would ask you different questions that would ease your mind about mortality. And so the goal of my project is to create a place where nobody is afraid to talk about death. Nobody is afraid of death or to die themselves because they have the rituals and frameworks to give it meaning and to make death not just bearable, but enlivening. And this is a secular framework. It's not a religion. It's a secular framework of questions and in the form of an experience where people leave feeling much calmer about death, much calmer and more tranquil about a lot of things in life, because I think a lot of our, like I said, anxiety in life is actually founded in our mortality. And I'm calling this the Garden of Epicurus project. And this project has 3 phases. Phase 1, which is what we're in now, is the experience design. So we're going to talk to wisdom carriers and religious leaders and community leaders and psychologists and people like you. And I would really love feedback from this amazing team about the design of the experience, which will be in the form of a week-long retreat. The second part is the pilot. So we're going to do a pilot retreat, and we're going to need 10 volunteers and about $25,000 to hold a pilot retreat this year and have an experience that is informed by the design so that we can get feedback and then incorporate that feedback into a trainable and repeatable experience. And the third part is public engagement. We want to give TED Talks and be on podcasts and engage the public in a way so people are talking about death in a different, enlivening way. And I want them to be excited to talk about it. I want them to be curious about the retreats and also find ways that they can get trained to bring these kinds of experiences to their own community. That's all the time we have for now. If you're interested in learning more, you can go to our website. And thank you so much for listening to me talk about my project. I am going to kick it over to.
Hold on, before
well,
we
I'm
do
going to give
that.
30 seconds.
Yes,
Yeah,
we're going to take 30 seconds just for people to. I already see people starting to throw ideas into the chat, but just Hello.
Awesome. So I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Susanna. Is the spotlight on Susanna? Yes. So Susanna's superpower is her combination of generosity and curiosity that seems limitless. Susanna was the first person to reach out to me and offer me help with my project. Like she did it without any prompting. She just was like, hey, how can I connect you to somebody who can help you with this? So her, it's not just her generosity and curiosity, but it creates a superpower to see what people need and to give it to them in a really precise way. So I'm so excited to kick this over to Susanna.
Oh, thank you, Anne. And thank you for going first. I know we've had these big ideas we're thinking about, so to have to distill it, thank you for going first for all of us. Okay, do I need to undo the spotlight? No, someone will do that for me. Okay, great. I'm even more excited to share with you all what my project is. Let me give you my big statement first. The world I imagine is one where gender nonconforming kids thrive and are able to unleash their superpowers through the unwavering and informed support of their parents and caregivers and the adults around them. And this feels like a critical issue for our time, not just because the CDC just came out with a study that 3% of high school students identify as transgender, and an additional 2.2% identify as non-binary or gender questioning. But we all live in a gendered society. And just think for a moment, how do you know what your gender is? Big question, but just think about it for a quick second. And what would your life be like if the world around you didn't agree with what you knew to be true for yourself? And what if you knew that at a young age and your parents didn't have the resources they needed to help you become your authentic self? So I have a transgender son who came out several years ago at the age of 13. And when I was going through this, I wrote a field guide, what I called a field guide, where they were basically the resources that I wish I could have handed to myself on that first day when he told me he was my son and not my daughter, so I could make sense of it all. And since then, I have received regular requests to share this field guide. And it seems to me to indicate that there is a real gap in either information or access for parents who have to make critical decisions on behalf of their child. So this is what I want to solve for. I want to help parents help their kids, where at best the world is not expecting this change, and at worst, the world is a hostile and dangerous environment for parents and their kids. So my 3 asks right now that I'm hoping this community can help me with. One, I am still very actively looking for connections with trans and non-binary people with either lived or professional experience, adults and kids. I also, my best guess right now is that this will be an interactive field guide. Right now, it's just a Google Doc that's getting shared around at one point to 30 countries. And so I'm looking to connect with people who have experience with interactive design, especially with a social impact focus. And then third, right now, my model and expectation is that I would partner with a national organization who already has scale and relationship with adults and caretakers of trans kids. So that would be excellent, but also anyone who has experience with partnering with national organizations, especially around social impact issues, would be awesome. So that is my spiel.
Awesome. Thank you, Susanna. So 30 seconds for quick thoughts in the chat.
about what order we were doing this in because I was so excited to introduce Sikander. We've just started to work together, but already I can share at least 2 superpowers. I reserve the right to know more of them as we keep working together. One, Sikander, you work from such a warm, deeply human and connected place, and you just exude optimism. Like when I work with you or I'm on a Zoom screen with you, the world feels possible. And so that it's a non-tangible, but feels so important to the work that we're all biting off. So thank you for that. I also will say, as evidence of that, Sikander was the first one to make sure we had a group photo in our first gathering, our meeting to get organized. And so he made sure that as humans, we had a documentation of our first cohort call. So thank you so much for that, Sikander. I already have it saved on my hard drive.
Super. Thank you very much, Susanna, and thank you everyone for giving us this opportunity. My name is Sikander Basanjo, and before I tell you what I do, let me tell you where I'm from. I am from Pakistan, but within Pakistan, there's a region in the southwest called Balochistan. Probably you have never heard of it. I would be very happy if you have. It covers half of Pakistan's land, but it only has less than 10% of population. So we're an ethnic minority called Baloch. Unfortunately, it's the least developed part of the country as well. In terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of infrastructure. So it's quite arid. You'll see a lot of mountains, very limited infrastructure. The project I'm part of, which I've co-founded called Balochistan Youth Action Committee or BYAC, we started this initiative during the peak COVID period, during the first lockdown. When the government put a lockdown, we realized that before even COVID reaches to these people, many of them are daily wagers. If they don't have food, they may not even survive. It was that grim and dire with no hopes. So we started helping with food supplies and medical needs. Just a movement, just a small thing, it grew to be something we've never thought it could be. So right now we have 200 plus volunteers across the province who are local indigenous young men and women. We're working on 4 areas. The biggest is disaster response. So we get activated whenever there's a disaster, whether it's by climate induced, whether it's an earthquake or anything. We are among the first responders because we know it's a neglected area. Government is not as interested to go and help. So we go as the first responders. Second is climate, health, and then education, all 4 areas. We have been working on incredible things. One of our highlight is we do reading rooms Balochistan. So these are 1-room libraries that we create in areas that do not have access to internet. So far we have 80 plus of these reading rooms already with more than 400,000 books that we've gotten donation for all the incredible people like yourself. What my asks are from this wonderful group is, so we mobilize these volunteers when there's a disaster, for instance, but throughout the year, we are struggling to mobilize them throughout or engage them throughout. I think one thing which I would really value from this group is if any of you have experience in volunteer engagement, mainly in the context of Global South, that would be incredible help. Another would be, do you have any experience in delivering training modules to volunteers, mainly in disaster response, mental health, or climate awareness? These are some of the things we want to engage our volunteers throughout and not just during the disaster responses.
Thank you, Sikander. Let's take 30 seconds for thoughts, ideas for Sikander. Add any additional comments, but we're going to pass it now back to Sikander to introduce Tasha.
Super. Tasha is a wonderful human. I've had the pleasure of interacting with her a few times, but whenever I did, she's always thinking about others and she's talking about others. I think her brilliant superpower is she is a creator and an enabler. And essentially, she enables people to do great things while being extremely humble. And I think that's her beautiful superpower.
Thanks, Sikander. It's super sweet when you, when you mentioned you were going to say that. I just had this moment of like, oh, your heart gets a little warm. So I'm not sure how many of us on the call here own a home. I would be willing to bet that for those of us who do, though, that home is going to be the biggest financial investment that you make in your lifetime. Right? In aggregate, we're talking about like 18% of the US GDP. Like there's a lot, there's a lot of weight behind this. There's a lot of money, both at scale and just in our personal lives, right? And so I want you to stop and consider that for a second. And now let's remember that the climate is changing. And it turns out that something like 2/3 of the housing stock in the US actually isn't equipped to handle the climate changes that are projected around each home for just like 3 to 5 years out. Right? You see the insurance crisis in California, Florida, Louisiana, increasingly Texas, Colorado, Carolinas, right? This is the tip of the iceberg. The thing is, I don't think it has to be this way. At the end of the day, our health, our well-being, our economy, communities, right? Even our employers all do better when your house is working right. We know that banks and insurance and companies all invest in the stuff that helps their bottom line. And we think that we can make your housing and your well-being part of their bottom line, and we can use that to make it more affordable. I'm Tasha. I'm building a company to help us do that. And this next year is really about building that company's foundation, the team, the initial funding, of course, the product market fit. And I'm so grateful to have the support that Mira and this incredible cohort give. And if you also wanted to engage, right, the most helpful way for you to do that would just be to get in touch. We want to talk to you about your experience with housing, with adaptation, with climate change, floods, fires, your water heater that went out and suddenly, took $20,000 out of your bank account overnight. Really, conversations with everybody are helpful at this point. And I would say, especially if you live in an HOA or what a condo association is, we definitely want to talk to you. And if you come from the world of AEC, right, architecture, engineering, construction, please do reach out. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Tasha. So let's take and I'm going to pass it back to Tasha to introduce Pomi.
And thank you so much, everybody. With that, I'd love to introduce Pomi, who I have to say pretty immediately struck me for the way that she so gracefully balances both her relentlessness in seeing the big picture in her work, with something like nearly a decade of being just like chest deep in the very nuts and bolts that keep that machine moving on the day to day. I'm just totally in awe of that, and definitely would not have had that patience and persistence myself. So super, super inspirational. With that, here's Pomi.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Tasha. So I'm Pami Singh, and I envision a world where people have more power in their own healthcare. So many Americans, as you probably know, are being pushed to high deductible plans, causing patients to delay care, resulting in more serious, untreatable ailments that could have been avoided or mitigated. I will spend the year speaking with industry leaders, building alliances with healthcare providers, and prototyping a solution that gives patients more control in their healthcare choices, costs, and educates others in what this new world might look like. There's a model in healthcare called direct to primary care, where patients have a better relationship with their primary care physicians, who on average can meet up to 80% of a patient's needs over their lifetime. These physicians have relationships with testing facilities, creating transparency and costs, making it feel more accessible when you can look at a list of prices like a menu rather than anticipating an unknown bill amount. Can we continue to push out the insurance intermediary, which is my big goal, by extending a similar relationship in what they call direct to employer models, which connects large employers directly to care? This focus on that patient and narrower relationships gives space for the healthcare model to evolve from reactive to proactive, integrating diagnostics and testing to help reduce risk. So my goal this year is to create a hub for reimagining healthcare in my city in this existing model, showing people how to get access, offer transparency and pricing for specific routine services, and creating partnerships with testing facilities to incentivize preventative care. My needs during this time are very technical and relational. I need more access to more healthcare data, healthcare costs, and provider census. Having a contact who can build websites and directories would be a lovely partnership. And then if anybody has access to people, these are very specific, at companies like Sedera, which does health cost sharing, or even the preventative tests like Grill tests, DEXA scans, and full body MRIs, I'd love to be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. All right, continue to add into the chat, but Pami, will you introduce Yusuf?
Yes. So my thoughts about Yusuf's superpower, it really comes from his calm nature in that it radiates. It's a calm that inspires peace, but it holds so much strength, and we're so lucky to bask in it as he uses this superpower to make an impact. Good to hear about it.
So much, Pami. I really appreciate that. Thank you to everyone who's here, taking some time on your Saturday to be a part of this community. It means so much to us. I'm gonna share a quick story. I met a young man my second year as a teacher. He was a bright kid, with a bright future. He was outgoing and funny and a joy to be around. Unfortunately, he made a horrible decision and he took the life of another teenager. And he's currently spending the rest of his years in a federal prison. I've been an educator in the great city of New Orleans for the past 13 years. I love being a teacher and I love pouring into my young people. There's something about seeing a light click on when my students get it and they show me they got it. Sadly, over the years, I've lost multiple students to senseless acts of violence. I've visited too many emergency rooms and I've spoken at too many funerals. My big vision is to create a world where everyone lives in a safe, peaceful community and where disagreement and conflict are resolved without violence. I created a pilot program that takes middle school students out of the element and essentially into the wild, into nature, where they embark on hiking trips and camping excursions, all while being shown a different way to express their frustration and learning about conflict resolution. During this year as a Mira Fellow, I hope to build a network of like-minded people who share my vision for a better world and who want to build networks that care deeply about how young people, we nurture them and get them to be peaceful adults. By directly engaging with students at a young age who are on the cusp of making some poor decisions and specifically targeting young people who have shown a pattern of bringing harm to others, I believe that teaching them emotional regulation practices can change the trajectory of just not their lives, but other lives as well. What I'm looking for from this community is partnership, accountability, and patience. I'm looking to build systems that help me spread to school districts outside of my city and to other cities around the country that will benefit from our programming. I'm looking for someone to open their minds and their perspectives and maybe even open their purses and their pockets and help me build this world that I envision. Hope you join me.
Thank you, Yusuf. Let's take a couple minutes. I'm going to close us out here with, hold on a second, a quick quote. I saw this quote the other day, or this isn't actually the best quote, but the sentiment is what I loved about it. It says, "Talent hits the target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see." And essentially what I love about this is I feel like this is the Mira Fellowship. These are all geniuses who are seeing things that nobody else sees yet. And I actually believe that every single one of us has this in us. So just keep that in mind. See, when you think that maybe you're crazy, other people think that maybe you're crazy, maybe you actually have a genius idea that will change the world. So thank you all for being here today. We're going to open up some space for you all to get to chat with some of these fellows if you want to. I know that we're at time, so feel free to head out as well, but I'll open up, we'll put a couple of fellows in each of the breakout rooms and you can feel free to choose one. You're also welcome to, if you feel like there's somebody you want to talk to that is not in a breakout room and you want to pull a different fellow aside, one of our forever fellows, feel free. And also if you're in a breakout room and you would like to have a new breakout room, I've created a whole bunch of breakout rooms, so feel free to ask to go to a new one as well.